News out of Burma since President Thein Sein took office in March 2011 has predominantly been of widespread reforms, democratic change and the release of high-profile political prisoners. After decades of ruthless dictatorship, it is news which the international community warmly welcomes. Despite this good news, Burma still has 25% of parliament reserved for the military, and the judiciary and the economy remain dominated by military interests.
Burma is different with other countries. Burma is not a peaceful country. Burmese people are still fighting for their rights.
It's a lot simpler in the past to look at the regime and just say this is one of the nastiest regimes on the planet at this time. And the situation now is actually a lot more complex. The real risk now is that the international community is going to figure that the hard work has already been done, that the lady is in parliament and that political prisoners have been released and democracy is opening up the country. You know, to speak to some of the diplomats or government officials or ministers who are paying attention to affairs in Burma, you'd think everything is fine and that the hard work's been done. It's really, this is only just beginning. There's a lot of optimism, there's a lot of hope, but there's still a lot of horror as well. I'm really worried that political prisoners are coming off the international agenda, and in fact there are still hundreds of people, we don't even know the exact number, still incarcerated, people being imprisoned and tortured even now in the conflicts in Kachin State and in Arakan. We're all familiar with the story of Dao Su and the extraordinary advocacy and sacrifices that she made under house arrest, and while there are people suffering circumstances that even she didn't have to suffer in these absolute hellholes or being shunted around the country from one prison to another, and some of them die in there and never come out, then we can't pretend that this is a free country, that this is a place where the rule of law is respected.
You know, lady, they released Aung San Suu Kyi, they released Meng Kong Nai and other prominent leaders. In the meanwhile, lady, they do not release AL, they do not release Komi A and other 400 political prisoners. No, they are not like the famous one. But in the meanwhile, they use political prisoners as pawn for their political games or political power. That is not a good method to use for rebuilding the country. Yeah, laughing is a good medicine. You know, we the Burmese people always make a jokes. Because lady, we suffer a lot. So if we cry, we will be crazy. Therefore, we trying to laugh, even though we are in prison. For example, when people hit and he was painful, we make laughing and then talking something blah blah. So that's the way we trying to help him for less painful.
It was actually quite hard when I told my parents what I would be doing here, and because they didn't understand. They said, "Why do you want to help criminals get out of prison?" It was quite hard for them to understand what exactly is a political prisoner and how that's different from a criminal offender.
The Koso Luye body, not a car, the Luta, Tamia, so the Pomarine Charara, Munsewa, Pomarine Charara, not a car, the Lu Wabo, the Lulu Bank, the Dubai Pisili, Lodonga Loda, Lelera, Ada Ligaro, you know, Yazo. So I really had to explain that these people were being imprisoned for things that we take for granted in our day-to-day lives, such as being able to choose your religion or being able to just be part of a student union, you know, just simple civil and political liberties. So that Quadiga Quahachegaro, the Nangaye Tenariga, Amiado Saurene, Cheja Canary.
My name is Bochi.
My name is
Onkaman.
Peru. Kinchomia Zulu.
Tunai. My name is Mimin.
My name is Chiao.
I was a senior year student, second year university student.
And I was a member of the security group for
I was studying a master in physics
at Rangoon University, majoring in international relations.
Majoring in Burmese literature in 1988.
My name is Susu Win. I was a mathematics student at Rangoon University.
Burma's modern history has long been linked to political activism, first in the struggle against colonisation which resulted in independence in 1948, and then in the struggle against successive military regimes. As anti-British sentiment increased in the 1920s and 30s, Burma's students coordinated strikes in 1920 and again in 1936, calling for greater political autonomy and the reinstatement of expelled students.
Under the British government, one like the Burmese people fought against British government for getting independence. Many activists were arrested, but at that time the situation is very different with now. So under the British government, the political activists were respected by British government. Also, even though they were in prison, they were treated very well.
In 1962, 14 years after Burma had gained independence, General Ne Win staged a military coup. His intolerance for political opposition was soon evident. On the 7th of July 1962, students protesting his military rule based themselves in the Union Building at Rangoon University. The Burmese military responded by blowing up the building with dynamite, killing more than 100 of the students. Over the following decades, it became obvious that arbitrary arrest, torture, imprisonment, and the killing of political activists was part of a ruthless state policy.
In 1988, we could introduce democracy and human rights in Burma. Before 1988, we did not know what is democracy or what is human rights. Actually, I have no political background, but I witnessed government crackdown, the peaceful demonstration very brutally.
Okay,လူတွေလို့ပြောလို့ရပါတယ်ဆိုတော့တက္ကသိုလ်ကျောင်းသားဘဝကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ခပ်ပေးပြီးတည်တည်နေပဲကျွန်တော်ဖြတ်ခဲ့ကြပါတယ်တပည့်ဆိုင်ထိုင်တယ်ငွေငင်းတွေစုံပြစ်တယ်ဒီကြပြစာအုပ်တွေထုတ်ကြတယ်ဖတ်ကြတယ်ဆိုတဲ့ကိစ္စမျိုးတွေကျွန်တော်ရှိပါတယ်နောက်တစ်ခါကိုယ့်ရဲ့တန်းကြီးတဲ့လူတွေအတွေ့အကြုံရှိတဲ့လူတွေကနေပြီးတော့ဒီမြန်မာနိုင်ငံကြီးနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးမိတ်ဆက်ပေးတာတွေကျွန်တော်ရှိပါတယ်
In August and September 1988, popular opposition to Burma's military government erupted, and in Rangoon alone more than 500,000 civilians, monks and even soldiers took to the streets demanding social, economic and political reform. The response of Burma's military irrevocably stamped it as one of the most brutal dictatorships of the 20th century.
So in 1988, I was a high school student. As a young person, I was active, also energetic, and also I love fairness. So when 88 generation happened, so me and also my friends, so we want to see the marching. When we were marching, so we had, in the other route, they were shot by the soldier.
Before I make a decision to do a peaceful demonstration, I have already known that if I was lucky, I would be arrested. If I was unlucky, I would die during the demonstration.
In response to the demonstrations, Burma's military opened fire and more than 3,000 men, women and children were shot on the streets of Rangoon. In the ensuing weeks, months and years, the military rounded up, tortured and sentenced to lengthy jail terms thousands of people suspected of being part of Burma's democracy movement.
Okay,ဒီလုံးမဲ့လုံးဆုံးဖြတ်တဲ့ကလုံးစပြီးတော့ဒီနိုင်ငံရေးမှာစပြီးတော့ပါဝင်ခဲ့တဲ့ကိုကတစ်ချိန်ချိန်မှာအဖားခံရမယ်ဆိုတော့ဒီအုံနောက်နဲ့နှလုံးသားနဲ့တည်ပြီးသားပါဒါပေမဲ့တကယ်အဖားခံတဲ့အချိန်မှာတော့
I never think of to go to prison when I was young. I believe my family and I believe my society. What we are doing is nothing wrong. I was not arrested during the demonstration, but a few days later I was arrested in my home when I was eating with my family for lunch.
Many of the friends, many of the colleagues, they were arrested. So some were arrested when they were only 14 years or 15 years old.
The arrest of those opposing the Burmese military continued unabated through the 1990s and the first decade of the new millennium. Cause for optimism, inspired by prisoner releases, were shown to be insincere window dressing as released prisoners, including Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and Ko Min Ko Naing, were once again imprisoned and further mass crackdowns on democracy activists continued.
Yeah, monks are treated very badly. The first thing is, as soon as they were arrested, intelligence personnel forced them to take off their robe, and then they were treated like a criminal prisoners. And then physically also, during the interrogation, they received brutal torture. In some cases, monks were transferred to the labor camps. Such kind of things are really worse to the monks.
I was arrested for the first time
for organizing demonstration,
for a leading role in 1996 student demonstrations,
for passing on information to groups,
for lobbying for reopening the union.
We marched and demonstrated to demand the release of Daw Aung San Suu Kyi.
I was arrested for trying to set up student union.
As a result of the demonstration, military intelligence arrested me.
And then again, in 1998, for 7 years with hard labor for distributing the history of Burma students' political movements books.
Political activists in Burma have been convicted under laws including the Emergency Provisions Act and the Unlawful Association Act, which impose draconian restrictions on freedom of speech, freedom of association, and freedom of movement. The judiciary has also readily manipulated civilian acts such as the Printers and Publishers Registration Act and the Electronics Act in order to prosecute political activists. For example, one of Burma's most famous political prisoners, Ko Min Ko Naing, was sentenced to 60 years imprisonment for breach of the Electronics Act. Others have been sent to jail for such trivialities as being filmed or purchasing batteries for an unregistered video camera.
You can take machine, can cheap out machine. So, do the Aduya Utayagani Bido, General Sojet in there. Bido, the Ayogani Bido, the Hudi Nepata Bido, Mala Mala Zula Biore. So, Tonga Miba, Bisila. So we don't get time either. You know, Missy, don't Lonely Town, don't time like these.
Military officers are like judge. They ask only one question: did I commit a crime? I answered one sentence: absolutely no. He responded that 3 years imprisonment would hurt labor. That's all. Finished the trial.
The Nganya to the Pumaga. Tagua Haze Kunedega told her Pomatiba. I tell you, don't swear at her. Maneativa. Dineshibare now Lame Nagamale, Tony Umama, General Democracy Matonga the Yugaro, Tipo Maria, Shini Umama, Diga, Puma, Evosima Puma, Manyabo, General, the bigger Bidulodoma, the Diduro goes a Udenu Tengara Shivare, the Pomario, Pep people, so that is ဒါပေမဲ့လွတ်တော်မှာအစိုးရကအခက်မသိရင်စိတ်လုံးမကြရင်အခုပုံမှန်33နဲ့ဆွဲလို့ရပါတယ်
First time I arrested in 1989.
I was imprisoned for 7 years.
5 years, 1 month and 7 days.
Second time I arrested in 1990/12.
I was imprisoned for 7 years and 3 months in total for 2 times.
And I was detained 2 times again.
That time I arrested in 1996 October.
I was imprisoned for 12 years.
Last time I arrested in 1996 December.
I was arrested in 1998 for helping to organize the student protests. I was serving in prison for 5 years and 9 months.
It was really interesting to talk to people who were actual prisoners. It's really emotional and you really feel sad and stuff. And when I was talking to the lady, that was the saddest part because then you have a face, you have a story, it's a real human. You're talking to her and she's telling you she's been in prison for 5 years, and that's just when I felt the saddest.
So at that time, 2 military intelligence came to my apartment around 10:30 p.m. and then they told my mom they are national intelligence, and then they wanted to see me and they wanted to question me for a while. I was blindfolded, then taken to the secret detention center. So at the same night, I was taken to the insane prison. But in the first day of my time in the cell, in the afternoon, I slept again. Then I had a nightmare in which 2 hairy hands squeezed my neck. Yeah, the cell was only 8x12 cell. So first I was detained alone for a week. So for 7 months, I was allocated only 15 minutes per day for bathing only, bathing and washing clothes, not for doing exercise, not for walking. Like other political prisoners, I was transferred from the prison to like a remote part prison. It's 200 miles away from my family, so my family cannot visit. So political prisoner, also other prisoners, they depend on family visit and family support. Supporting food, also medication, also clothing, and also personal item, everything. So without family visit, I think anyone can die easily in prison.
Since 1988 to until now, 150 political prisoners dying in prison because of torture, because of starvation, and then because they not getting timely medical treatment and also enough medical support by the prison authorities. Some of my friends died during their prison time. I really want the truth for them.
In March 2011, 4 months after Burma's widely condemned general elections, President Thein Sein takes office.